Starting up the streams. Cool. All right. Okay. Where did I leave off last week? We have this nice colorful spinning cube. We have a horizon. Oh, one thing I noticed, if I stretch this window, you can actually see the other sides of the ground being like a big square. So that was kind of interesting. Um, More like a table rather than a ground, right? It doesn't go out really that far. Hey there, TS Joss. First post. All right. That's the state that we're in. Did I leave stuff to do? Ooh. Yes, I did. Too many lines. This still need refactoring. Yep. Need to refactor the main function. And yeah, too many arguments in the draw function. Yeah, before I add anything new, I think I really should refactor the code down. Let me think about this draw function. I think it has too many responsibilities. Model render models. Egui render, egui triangles. Q use there. I wonder if I could just split this up, make this its own function, this its own function, and then leave these two in the caller. But start with that. So two functions, one that draws the models, the other one that makes a render pass. Okay, let's see. Copy this and paste. So we'll have this function return the render pass. Render pass. Okay, what do we need for the render pass? Need to know the lifetime, so lifetime of this is the same as the encoder, right? Okay, to do that, I have, was it the end or the beginning? I can never remember these things. Sort of arbitrary. It'll tell me if I get it wrong, right? Hey, it must be declared prior. Thank you, compiler. All right, so we'll get rid of that error by renaming this. Start render pass. Okay, so we can remove all the things that have yellow squigglies around them. What's this error though? Explicit lifetime required in the type of view. Lifetime encoder required. Okay, so the view is borrowed for the same lifetime. Okay, and then we don't need these three arguments or these three, right? Cool, so then maybe I can elide the lifetime completely. Actually, I can't, right? Because there are two borrows, so it's going to be like, I don't know which lifetime. If I do like this, it's going to be like, which lifetime is it? I guess it is borrowing both the view and the encoder, right? So let's just make it a generic name. A. All right, and then let's just have this function only draw the models. So I'm tempted to make it method that's inside of an implementation on an array, but I don't think I need to. Okay, so let's first remove this part. Let me take these two out. I'll take them over to where draw is actually called. Brooke Zerker, thank you for the raid. How was your stream? Show you guys what I've been working on. So I've been playing around with some graphics libraries. Hey there, Andrew Kravsky. So graphics libraries that I've been playing around with, we're drawing this 3D scene, which is kind of like a hello world scene because we're not doing much in it, in wgpu. So that's what wgpu is. And these graphical elements on top, I'm using egui for. And there are integration libraries that kind of pull them together. And also to integrate with the windowing system. So there's winit. There are other things like full tick. So various libraries and their integrations are what I'm playing with. Today I'm starting off refactoring some code I was working on last week. But yeah, there's not much to this yet. I'm mostly doing this to learn the libraries and play around with them. I want to pull in Rapier, which is a physics engine, to actually make the scene look realistic, give this cube some actual momentum and mass and all that, have it bounce around. But first I'm doing some refactoring. This is all in Rust, by the way. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Hey there, Ramy. How are you doing? Good evening to you, sir. Ramy, who is the artist formerly known as Ramy. Got 2 weeks off. Wow, that's great. Did you just get 2 weeks off, or you're 2 weeks in the middle, or are you almost done with the 2 weeks? They have to go back to work. Right. So draw. Pulling those out of draw now, which means I gotta call something to get the render pass, right? Start render pass takes. I'll just copy all this stuff and paste it up here, right there. So let render pass equal start render pass. Encoder and view, right? So that needs to be mutably borrowed. This one only needs to be immutably borrowed. Okay. Draw, I think, I'll fix these other errors first. Ordered a new laptop last Friday. It was supposed to come this morning, but it hasn't arrived yet. Start your 2 weeks off today. Nice. Well, hopefully you don't need the laptop for your 2 weeks off. Okay, so this needs to be borrowed. And this one too, right? And this render pass goes away. Actually, does it? Hold on. This actually just needs to be mutable. Cool. All right, what's wrong with draw? Oh, we're gonna fix these. This becomes just draw a model, right? Draw models. Mostly gaming upgrade. Well, if you wanted to play games for the 2 weeks you're off, that sucks that you don't have your upgrade. Okay, we don't need to do this, right? But we have to actually pass it in now. Before it was not passed in. Let's put it here. Render pass. Don't know what lifetime yet. Okay, and then remove this. Okay. Here we go. Removed a lot of the arguments, right? Ah, it's not helping me to know which ones. How about if I comment this out first? And start render pass has a problem. Type annotations needed. Oh, the N we don't actually need anymore, right? Drop that there from there. Okay, now we're getting the warnings about things we don't need. So let's delete the things we don't need. Still does need a significant number of arguments. Ooh, we have a 1 and a 2 lifetime. See ya, Brooks Zerker. Thanks for the raid again. Okay, what does that mean as a lifetime specifier? This means that this render pass has elements within it that are shared or borrowed, I guess is a better word, borrowed from something else. And that borrows all have a lifetime specifier saying how long the borrow can last until. And with an underscore in general in Rust means to let the compiler like figure it out. So it's an inferred value. So it's just saying to the compiler, hey, this type has some borrows within it. The lifetime of those borrows, figure it out from the context. So a lot of the time the compiler can't just figure it out. You have to be explicit, and I'll probably run into that here. But until I know what it is, I like to hope that the compiler can figure it out. And if it can, then I don't need to worry about it myself. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, I do have multiple borrows, and it's now saying that they are from different lifetimes, so I have to reason this out. Before I do that, though, let me fix this. Oh, it's unused. Okay, well, we will use that. Okay, so now we do need to reason this out. All right. So if the render borrow is lifetime 1 and the render pass is lifetime 2, no, the implied one is 2, then this one says that 1 must outlive 2. So if we give them names and we have a lifetime constraint, that would be explicit there, right? So we'll call this one render, and we'll call this what was the other one? The models. Specifically the borrow inside the models, right? And we have to say that the render, I put the colon in the wrong place. The render outlives the models. Where? And then this actually has to be declared out here. Okay. Lifetime might not live enough, long enough. Oh, I had it back. I get things backwards a lot. And I think it's just a laziness trait that I'm like, one has to be outlive the other. I'm not going to think about the whole thing. I'm just going to try it one way and then reverse it if it doesn't work. So the model renderer needs a lifetime, and it needs to be render, so that's fine. Let's call this, yeah, it's render, right? Cool. So that resolved the lifetime issues. This is basically saying that the render pass lives at least as long as this lifetime. The model, the borrows inside this array live at least as long as some other lifetime, and the models outlives the render. So the borrows inside of this array are at least as long as the renderer borrow. And I believe that's because draw takes both of these. Yeah, because of this. And that is because of what exactly? Not sure. I guess it's this right here. That we're reaching into this model to get to its index buffer, and that index buffer is borrowed. Yeah, there's some kind of slice of a buffer that's borrowed for some lifetime. Lifetimes in Rust are really sort of difficult to explain, and if you can avoid using the lifetimes, it's probably best until you get really used to it. When you have multiple lifetimes and you have to start saying which one is longer, which one is a superset of the other, then it gets even hairier. But fortunately, I have appeased the compiler, and that's all that matters. So let me uncomment this draw models. Whoa. Draw models took a render pass model render models queue screen descriptor. So model render pass model render models themselves, and it was like queue and something else, right? Queue and screen descriptor. So it doesn't take these anymore. It takes those. Okay. So I don't think I need to suppress this warning anymore. So start render pass gets us a render pass by borrowing from an encoder and a view. So this is how that original borrow, actually two borrows of the same lifetime, end up being sort of encoded into a structure. If I show you what it has here is the where the borrow is being stored in this thing called parent, right? So because the borrow is inside of the structure and not of the whole structure itself, the syntax is to put it there rather than it being a reference outside, right? The reference is inside here. And this, we use the same lifetime because what the borrow we put inside the structure is of this given parameter encoder. Okay, and I don't have too many arguments here, right? You might ask, what is this whole thing doing? So this, what I've learned is the way in wgpu to start a draw of a frame. So here's where you would tell it to clear the screen or clear the window that you're drawing in, and you provide the color that you're going to, the background color you're clearing with. And this view is a description of what subset of the window, it could be the whole window or it could be a small subset of it, that we're going to draw into. And then there are various places where we can attach things, like if we have a depth buffer, we would put it here. I forgot what resolve target is. But anyway, this clears the window and then gives us back an object that kind of represents all the things that we're drawing in this pass. So if you have just one pass, you do all your drawing with it, but you might have multiple passes where maybe you draw to an off-screen buffer, and then you grab that texture out, and then you use it for a second pass. Not necessarily a frame. I think OpenGL equivalent would be binding a frame buffer. You mean the view part? Yeah, I'm probably using the wrong terms. I just said it. Okay, got it. That's streamer lag? Yeah, streamer lag. So draw models is now pretty simple, although it's got some complicated borrows in it because it's borrowing from three different things, two of which have internal references. The render pass itself, and then this array has an internal reference. That makes it a little bit complicated. But conceptually, if you look at the code, it's pretty easy. We're just saying for each model in an array of models, pass that model with the render pass, queue, and screen descriptor to the model renderer to draw it. And what that draw does is it selects the render pipeline from the renderer. It sets up the buffers. So this is like the geometry, both per vertex and per instance geometry for what we're drawing. And then here's where I calculate the perspective exactly right here. And then the transformation matrix for the model. And this one loads that instance per instance geometry that has those transformation matrices in it. And here's where we actually tell the wgpu we're going to draw it. Yufu stuff, hello. I forgot to say hello to Ray March as well. Okay. Looks like we used to import clip primitive, and now we don't, so we don't need that anymore. Let's make sure I didn't break anything. Cargo, run the thing. At long last, so people who have joined and haven't seen me run it yet can see what it actually does. So this is what we're rendering. Very cool, huh? Again, like the hello world for when you're doing graphics programming. Be curious where that we specify that cube. That is right here. So we describe it in terms of its vertices. So there are 8 of them. Each vertex has a position in space and a color attached to it. And then of those 8 vertices, we form the indices, which are like how to connect the vertices into triangles. So each one of these is a triangle to form each of the 6 faces of the cube. And the ground also has geometry. It's got 4 points in it, and we're drawing 2 triangles to make a square. All right. I had one more to do, right? Oh, I also need to fix this. I just have it force the surface color space. I found that this works inside the virtual machine, but I tried running this outside, and since I'm running on a Mac Studio, it picks the metal backend, and I think metal doesn't support that for my screen. So rather than just forcing it, we have to actually just kind of search for one of many formats. I think what ended up being is it doesn't support RGBA, but it supports BRGA, which is just RGB flipped around. So I probably need to do this iteration of the capabilities of the surface and see if it doesn't support that one, try the other one. In fact, what if I just reason that out now? So that instead of that, but we don't want to find sRGB because that's not compatible with egui, right? This needs a format in front. We want to find where it's either RGBA 8 UNorm or BGRA. Find F where F equals this or the other. BGR. All right, we got to borrow in these 2 places to make it happy. Okay. Fix that wrapping that occurred there. Try that. Okay, cool. Didn't break it. Go with that. All right, this one that has too many lines. This is going to be tougher, right? Because we actually do a lot of things here. I'm wondering how much we actually capture in this redraw closure. If it's not a whole lot, then we can make this into a function and just pass that stuff in, right? Let's try to refactor this to see what happens if I have to pick the whole thing, actually, not just up to the parentheses, but the parentheses as well. Right click, factor, checked into function. How many arguments is that? That's quite a few arguments. All right, that's not going to work. The other thing we can do is all of these arguments, instead of them just all being separate on the stack, we could make this whole thing into an object first. Let's try that avenue. So essentially, main just makes an object that all these things would, like the egui context, the window, all these things would go into the state of that object. Probably what would make sense is to cut this into the part that stays in main. That kind of does the setup of all this stuff. And then the second part, which is running the Windows event loop, put that into an object. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's just out of convenience, like when we create 4 different things here, it would be nice to just turn around and make the main app from that. Actually, I think right here is where we stop making things and then we start creating references to things. So what if we cut right there? So we would like make something like an app. And well, let's put all this instead of the app run. Or actually, what if we have an app new? And the app new does everything, all of that stuff. So app new would probably be given the Surface device, Surface config, put it with the Surface. Is that it? Everything else is derived from that? That would be nice. Put it here now for convenience. Struct app. Implementation for app. Function new. Paste that. It generates a self. I think all these things have names that are predictable. That might be spelled out though, configuration. Comment that out for a second. Cool. Just copy paste all of that there. Then I just repeat myself here. All right. And then let's move this, put it up here. So that means that these are both reference counted. All 3 of them actually are seed. And the service config is put inside of a ref cell. And these measurement devices are put into the state as well. Okay, so that's a single sim SMA. Actually, I should just copy all of this. That's a U size. Actually, I need to have the value there, don't I? Yeah. Okay, and then this guy, FPS. All right. So my code public? It's you can see it right now, right? If you mean by like you can do screen captures of the stream, but if you mean like if do I upload this somewhere where you can download it, I'm not allowed to do that with the job I have. I have to go through this whole process of getting approved for contributing to open source, and that's a long and arduous process that really doesn't make sense to do for the stream. Sorry. Yeah, well, you could just steal the code as I write it. Okay, I'm not going to bother with those yet. I need to fix these errors. Okay, I want to move all this into the run, right? So I'll go make the plunge by doing a cut, and then up here I'll do a paste. And then let's just have it consume the app. That's the easiest way to do it. Let's see the other day that on Mac OS screenshots, you can now select text. Yeah, it isn't too hard to steal my code as I write it. If you use that OCR stuff, right? Yeah, I'm mostly doing this for sort of like live interaction, and I can answer questions if you have them. It's not really a code sharing thing, and really Twitch isn't that in general, right? It's only if coincidentally someone is doing open source coding while streaming, which I used to do, but now that I have a job that restricts me from doing that, it's I can't do it. Super creep down. You saw it. Not that you thought they weren't able to scan the text, just hope that they didn't without your consent. I just make the assumption people always try to steal things, and at least in the U.S., the enforcement is that I have copyright on it. So if it comes out that it goes into a product and I know it, I can just say, well, you violated my copyright. You didn't get my permission. And my license is $1 billion. Or something like that. Okay, so we need a box of closure. We do need to clone this, but this is on self now. Yeah, so the cost of moving all this into an object is that we're going to have a lot of selfs added. Oh, these things don't though. Hold on. So only these first two. This one? Yeah, I didn't move those in. I don't know where those went. Where did egui context go? Oh, they're in here. One up here. Ah, does that move into the new, I guess? I guess we'll move it all in and then have to move some of it back out. I do want to kind of cut it there. I can remove that, right? This has to return the same thing, so it's going to return it anyhow. Anyhow. Of course, yeah, $1 billion is a very normal, reasonable license. Anyone who's new, wgpu lets you do things like draw graphics in a lot of different environments. So it could be on top of an operating system, so like a native thing, something like Metal or Vulkan or OpenGL. And you can also do this in WebGL. So here's an example of that up here somewhere. So this GUI in this web browser is all also in that same. Hold on, I'm getting two things confused. The UI elements up here can be put into WebGL. The wgpu could also run on the web, but it's a separate library, and I'm kind of integrating these two together. I'm doing 3D graphics drawing with wgpu, and I'm doing GUI stuff with egui, and they're kind of melded together. Both you could run in a browser. egui written in wgpu? No. So there's an integration layer between them, which is unsurprisingly called egui underscore wgpu. So egui itself, if I can pinpoint where it's done, it's in this ren. Well, my code is all like scrambled right now. It's hard to show you. Was it here? Yeah, so with the context and the integration, from the integration you get all the input events that happened. And using the context, you run with that input and any user interface you want. So here's my user interface. It's just a frame with a 10 pixel margin around it and with some content, and that content is like labels. I had a button in there, right, and a spinner. So what you get out is a bunch of shapes. So there are triangles to draw and a bunch of textures, and then platform output goes back into the integration, like what cursor to show, what kind of like things to give to a screen reader, what to put in the clipboard, that kind of thing. So it's pretty low level stuff. It's up to you to take these shapes, these triangles, and do something with them. So with wgpu, we go through a render pass to draw them. But you could, if you had your own thing you wanted to draw to, as long as you can draw triangles, you can draw their UI. Textured triangles, that is. Yeah, no problem. That's what I'm streaming for, is to answer questions. And a lot of the times, chat's questions helps me question my own my own path I'm taking, and that helps. Also, you guys give me advice. Sometimes I'll listen. Okay, we need these in the app state. RC context. Yeah, maybe this whole thing just goes into the whole thing, not just cut there, but the whole thing. Maybe I cut it down further after this first cut. So main just sets up an app context and runs it. That app context is really just going to be the args, right? Oh, then I cut the args. Yeah, this. Actually, maybe the window we keep in the main here, because then we've consumed the arguments. I don't have to pass them in. So all of this stuff then. So there's a cat trying to get my attention, competing for attention. That goes here, right? Okay, that means that it's the window that gets passed in. Which makes sense. It's a boxed abstraction. An abstract window. Which is mutable. And this is fallible, so I have to that just returning self would return an anyhow self. Anyhow result. It means down at the bottom we have to wrap this with OK, right? OK. Refactoring is such a messy thing. Right, so this becomes just window. What's wrong with run? Doesn't exist? Did I comment it out? No, it just doesn't compile. Okay. Getting there. One thing at a time. Egui context. Where is that? That's here somewhere, I thought. How come I'm not seeing it? Oh, there it is. Right, we needed that to give it to the window integration, so that means it has to be put in here. RC knew of one of these. Okay. RC that. Okay, so that we should just store because we need it for later, right? Let me make a feeble attempt to sort this. There we go. Go away. Pop up. All right. So then that becomes down here. Self. We don't have the Q, do we? Okay, where is the Q? Here it is. Q just Q? Yep, Q is just Q. Q and Q self. Oh, we have a visitor. Kitty. Oh, kitty. Just gonna sit there on top of chat for a while. Self.surface, self, a lot of selfs. Oh, did I not store the window? How could I? How could I forget the window? It was even passed in to us. Hey, there is Matt. It is a Ramu stream. This is my new schedule now. Around this time slot. Trying to be like pretty regular about it. There's certainly a lot of state in the self. Do the renderer next, I guess. Where is the renderer? Here it is. Qualify that. There we go. Oh, it's from wgpu. Right, that's from the integration layer. Whenever we see the names of two libraries together, it's an integration. Self dot. Okay, getting there. We're getting there. This should be a question mark, right? There we go. We haven't done rapier yet. Let me run this because I haven't run in a while. So this is what I've done so far. So with wgpu and egui, I was just basically doing hello world type stuff. And rapier will be to give this cube, or whatever we end up putting in here. Maybe I evolve this into some kind of textured 3D model, right? If we use an asset importer, maybe bring in actual 3D models of things and give them physics with rapier. So have them fall, have them bounce around, have them hit each other. Luz, how are you doing? Kitty's gone. Okay, turn off kitty cam. You know what would be fun is to have some kind of motion sensor that turns the camera on when the cat jumps into the field. And after inactivity, turns off the camera. That would be useful, right? Maybe that I do that as a project on stream at some point. Because it wouldn't be too hard, right? Get one of those motion sensors. It probably just has a high and low signal. Have that go into a GPU, a GPIO of some microcontroller that that sends us a packet, sends us an HTTP request whenever the state changes. Love to have a weight sensor for one. Oh, that's a good idea. Like I have a pad that the cat sits on, and then that becomes a signal back to OBS. Am I not storing the GUI integration? I thought I just did. Oh no, I did the render. I didn't do the integration. That's one of these. That's dynamic. That is dynamic, yes. Part of the original window. GUI integration. There we go. Why type it when we can have the help type it for us? WGPU is looking pretty solid in today's world. I think so. I love abstractions that let us do cross-platform work. That's one thing that really got me interested in trying this, playing with this. And then I don't need to necessarily learn those low-level libraries like Vulkan or WebGL, right? Or I don't need to remember my OpenGL anymore. Well, do we store the model renderer? Not yet. Where's my model renderer? It's up here somewhere. There it is. FPS measurements. Well, we're building a lot of state into our app, that's for sure. Okay, I think I'm just down to the models, so let's just assume that they are something we put into our state. I build them up here somewhere, right? Cube model, ground model. Why did I put it there? I don't know. Right there. Okay. Self is mutable. Hey, look, it compiles. Now we're just down to the warnings, saying that none of those need to be mutable because we're not mutating them in the new. We're just constructing them to store them into our own state. All right. And then this window does not need to be mutable. The app doesn't need to be mutable because we're just telling it to run. In fact, I could just say run here, right? Remove that semicolon, and then we don't need the name app. App new egui context window run. I know I'm approaching my goal when things become more readable. So now we can read our main function now. So this is setting up logging. In fact, why don't I just refactor that right now since it's so easy. We'll call this setup logging. We set up logging, which involves setting the log level. So that's a filter. Any log messages with at a priority lower than info get discarded. We allow the environment to adjust it. We tweak these levels so that we don't see anything below a warning for those because those are really chatty. And then builder pattern. Once we've constructed our configuration, we say go ahead and initialize. I don't need, so I can just remove that, right? And this can be anyhow result with empty. Oh, I still need to do that to transmute the error type, right? Well, I could not use anyhow. What is the error type of init? It's a result log set logger error. Set logger error. There we go. Now I'm explicit. So set up logging, parse our arguments, make an egui context, make a window based off of what window implementation we picked on the command line, and then take that egui context and that window, create an app context or app, and then run it. This I think I need to chew on a little bit more, right? This is maybe a little bit too complicated still. So the cool thing is that some of this stuff can be refactored within the app. So like I can make this just like make models or something, right? Okay, I have two choices. I can have a mutable self or I can have a builder. Hey there, Stripe Monkey. Things are looking great. Just refactoring today. How they're looking in terms of what the app looks like, it looks like this right now. So we got a nice perspective projection. We have the sky and the ground. We have a GUI that works. Looking good. I think what I'd rather do is have a mutable self, which means that rather than building the self down here. Oh, wait. I was going to say, rather than building down there, we could build it at the top and then fill things in. But a lot of this stuff requires, yeah, that requires all this to be constructed from the very beginning, right? So scratch that. I guess I could just start by commenting this, create our 3D models. Initialize our wgpu drawing resources. What do I need this model renderer for? I actually don't need it until the end, right? So what if I just take this out and put it down here? Looks good to me. Okay, egui integration. We also don't need down. Oh, hold on. What's this? Mismatch types. Oh, we just need the magic dereference thing in front of that. Why is that? Expected a reference found. Oh, it's a ref cell. Shoot. Kind of wanted. Okay, back up. I know why I constructed it up there. I constructed it up there because we're borrowing from the surface config before we put it into a ref cell. So let's do that down here. Actually, that surface config, I can move that down here. Make it look a little bit nicer. We can do our jailing down here in the final statement. So same thing here, right? It doesn't have to be jailed inside an RC until that point. Same thing with the device. Actually, model renderer new takes an R. Oh no, it doesn't. It takes a borrow. So again, I can just take this and jail it at the very end. Device. And delete those lines, right? Cool. Can I do this then? Since it goes first? I can't, because device has been put into an RC by that point. Okay, so back up. Up even more. This I can put here. Right? Then it starts to make that look ugly. So back up. This I have space for here. I think I'm trying to follow a rule of thumb where the final construction gets one line per, and if it takes more than one line, I do it beforehand, give it a name, so that it's the same name as the field, and so it just slides right in. See if I can get away with this right here. Yes, okay, I got away with it. Cool. Construct renders. Make a render time. Well, if I say that, I really shouldn't repeat myself here, right? Which means I don't really need a comment. But I kind of want to have a comment there to separate from this. So this is wrap everything together. So what comment to put here? Construct. How about if I just pull these together? Construct. Construct other objects used during frame rendering. What's the end goal of this project? Just to have fun and to learn the libraries. I'm not really building anything permanent. I suppose once I get more familiar with these libraries, I could use them at work or at in other hobby projects. Probably the latter. Because these are general purpose libraries, right? So if ever I need to do in Rust something with low level graphics, now I'm better able to do it with wgpu. And overlays like this are really a pain in the butt to do manually. So knowing how to do it with egui is kind of nice. Yeah, do it in JavaScript with webgpu. wgpu you could run on the web, so why use JavaScript? it builds to the web just fine. You just have a small JavaScript layer to do the Rust to well, you compile it to WASM, right? WASM, and then run the WASM with a very small JavaScript bootstrapping. Don't ever need to know JavaScript if I know Rust and WASM. Okay, this looks a lot nicer to me. I can kind of, it doesn't look like a wall of text anymore. It looks like, yes, this is where we're doing the drawing resources. Here's our 3D models. Right, here's where we construct some miscellaneous things and then wrap everything together. I think the run needs some work though. The run is a big wall of text right now. Cannot convince your coworkers to use anything but TypeScript. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope WASM will completely replace JS. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Hey, 85 Filter. How are you today? Mostly refactoring today. Because I haven't really changed anything in the appearance here. We're just making sure it still runs. Oh, one thing I want to do today, if I have time, I might, is rather than having just spin like this, let's have some sliders that allow us to spin it in different along different axes, right? Maybe I put a slide. I don't know if I can put a slider down here. Right now, I don't know enough about egui to know how to place stuff in this window, or even how hard it is. Maybe just start with putting them down, putting some sliders horizontally across here to play with the rotation, rather than having it just rotate over time. You can also get rid of that cool spinner. Don't really need it anymore, right? It's been a while, so what if I make a commit with this refactoring? Not going to bother to write more than just refactoring. Okay, I can at least take redraw and resize and make them functions that return boxed closures, right? Actually, what mutates self right now? FPS measurements does. So these are going to be our pain points. If I split off a box closure, it's going to have a different lifetime. It has to be sendable and all that, right? So if self is not mutable, updating our FPS measurements is going to be a problem, right? I think what we're going to end up doing is pulling those out of self. This app start should probably move into, well, it is moved into the closure, right? Yeah. Why does the egui render, why does that need a mutable reference? It just does. Okay, so that does need to be mutable. Yeah, I might have trouble now that I put this into an object to make a boxed closure. How does it works now? Why? Because self moves into redraw? Is that what happens? No? How does this work here? We're moving self in, right? So how is it that we can make two different boxed closures which both have a self inside? Why is the borrow checker okay with that? Does it just know that is it because we're passing both to the event loop? Okay, 7105209. I need someone who knows Rust better than me to answer like why it's okay to make two boxed closures that have self in it, a mutable self reference in them. Is it because the two things? It's because they don't share the same thing. But like if I took this and used this over here in resize, we'd have a problem, right? If I did this, then we have a big problem, I think. Yeah. This is the problem we get. Use of moved value. Okay, and we can see kind of from the arrow there that it's not, it doesn't care about self, it cares about self dot FPS measurements. So it's actually fragmenting self for me. So we're okay as long as the two boxed closures don't share things. Surface config is not shared. Oh, right. I think I duplicated it up here. Yeah. These clones are how we got away with it before, and that's how we're going to continue to get away with it. I don't know if that's a recent thing. I was surprised that it let me do this. I guess it is in Rust now. It does a partial move of self. I'm able to split self into two closures. I still have to do these things though for the mutable stuff, and that's also why I had to reference count them, because we want the same surface device and config. And furthermore, I think I had to make surface config inside a ref cell in order to change it. So at the cost of ref selling and reference counting certain things, we can split selves into two pieces, as long as they are not both borrowed mutable. As long as they're both borrowed immutably. So that means I should be able to refactor this, right? If I just take this and refactor into function, I should be able to borrow mutably. No, I can't. So the other trick is to return self and the boxed closure. Self. Mutable self. But can you not assign back to self again? Okay. How about this? Okay, I still have problems. Oh, because I am not returning self. So let read box. Can't use the word box. Boxed closure. use of partial. Okay, we're running into that limitation, right, March. When I refactor this into a function, now it has a problem of use of partially moved value self. Okay, so that's the limit of this. I can't refactor it into a function, really. Not that easily. So if I can get rid of self everywhere here, though, we could do it. It's just that self is used all over the place. I probably can't even make a function out of some of the out of this stuff, right? Like, what if I tried to make a function out of this? It probably is still going to have a problem. Moment I borrow immutably self, it's going to have a problem. Yeah. Can't do that. So really the only way I got away with these partial moves is that self is not borrowed. So it's owned by this function, so it can be split into different pieces. So then what I'm thinking about doing is that really this should be I should formally split self into two things, right? The redraw self and the resize self. And then that's how we give it to the window. Actually, that's three pieces. The window, the redraw, the resize. We split them formally into three objects, and then they go their separate ways. One we retain, the other two we pass into the retained part. Schizophrenic refactor. Wish it was smarter about potential borrows in more situations despite the difficulty. You call self foo, you can't do a partial borrow. Yeah. I think for me, it's just useful to recognize the pattern that the function owns self, therefore it's allowed to do partial moves. But now we can't use self in any context where like we need the whole object anymore. We really should formally split it into the concerns that redraw has, the concerns that resize has, and the window. You know what that's going to help doing is like I won't need the ref cell to be stored in self anymore, right? So I should that surface config, right? Right, but right here we could write the ref cell at this point. So I could just make this just the surface config if I wanted. I could do that. Right? As long as I split it before I do this, so I can say let surface config equal rc new ref cell new self.surface config. I can do that because I'm splitting off. We're dividing self into different things, right? So now this surface config, we just clone the reference there. And this is no longer self. Yeah, so it just works. So then, is there really much purpose in having this whole app state? What if new actually returned three things? It should return the window back out. Actually, we only borrowed the window. What do we need the window for? Let me follow the final references. Yeah, we only need the window to run the event loop and to and during like init time, right? So we really don't need to own it. We could just borrow it. So then instead of app being one struct, we really should make it two structures, right? Or really, we should just make the closures. Yeah, okay. So at the risk of making one giant function again, instead of doing it, making a new app, we really should be returning two things back out of this. So really, we can borrow that there. We actually don't need this structure anymore. This is just like hold on, before I go that far, I'm wondering if there should just be two states. No, ultimately, I need a box closure. But what if I had the closure? What if I put the entire thing inside a ref cell, and then each closure can just borrow, because it's all single threaded anyway, right? Yeah. What if I do it this way? Instead of having reference counted for these things, what if they just own all these things? This has to be a reference counted. No, it doesn't. This can be boxed, right? A box. By the way, one thing I learned that they didn't teach me right away is that box is just like a RC, only there is no reference count. So you could think of like box and RC are both two kinds of pointer into the heap. RC is actually reference counted, box is not. That's really the only difference between the two that I know of. Oh, another difference is box owns the thing and RC, like the thing inside the box is mutable, but the thing inside of an RC is not. But yeah, these don't need to be reference counted anymore if we're going to put the whole thing inside a ref cell. So that means the app can sort of just vend out the, instead of doing it run, we can just have, say, like, vend a redraw and vend a resize. So, sure, we can do it like this. We can say redraw vends out a boxed, well, exactly the type that I need it to be, which is up here in my abstraction. This thing. Actually, we'll copy both while we're at it. So it just vends out one of these. Here, have a boxed mutable function that returns a duration. Right? I've got to be careful here. Is there a reason why app start was outside of that? There really wasn't a reason, right? So that could have just been as easily been inside. Box is just a way to make sized into sized by allocated on the heap. Well, RC does the same thing though. Only RC makes it requires it to be immutable. You can get a checked mutable reference that verifies it's the only strong reference from an RC. You can? Is that new? Okay. Let me make the structure for the other guy. So the structure for the other guy is resize. Okay, and then these just need to borrow immutably. Hold on. I'm gonna put the whole app inside a ref cell, right? So don't I need this to be borrow immutably, right? No. Let me think about this. Put that back to mute cell for a second. Get rid of this. If we're gonna vend out a boxed closure, can we do cell new? Is that syntax allowed? Or RC ref cell? Or hold on, it's the I'm thinking about this wrong, right? Instead of impl app, we do impl ref cell app, right? Or it's Can't, this syntax is not allowed. Type outside of the crate where the type is defined. Can't implement impl for a foreign type. So you can't like do that. Okay, I guess I'm going down the wrong path when thinking about that. But conceptually, that's what I want. It's like if app is inside of a ref cell, then I want to like use it to actually it's got to be a reference counted ref cell, because given a reference to the cell, I want to vend out something which borrows every time we get in here, right? I'm going to want something like let this equal this dot borrow mute. Something like that, right? And then this instead of self everywhere here. And outside, like, be this is a RC ref cell app. And yeah, instead of just the surface config, it's let this equal this bar clone. And that gets moved in there. I'm mutating this, or I'm really thrashing this code, aren't I? Why did I? Okay, I don't need to do these anymore. This is just this. Pretty sure only box, arc, RC are allowed to be used with self. So you can't do it with rest cell. But I can do it this way, right? Method. I don't want to make it a method. Why is it complaining? Because probably because of the way I'm using it. So this can just be surface. This can just be device. GUI context. Where are you? Oh, it already is. So that one is all comes in shared. I can't remember why, but I think it has something to do with it. It comes out from main. I'll fix that in a bit. All right, this needs to be a boxed. That thing. And here it is. All right, so we're going to do the same kind of thing. Clone the reference, because we're going to move it into the closure. Then once in the closure, we open up the ref cell like that. So then I don't need to do that. I just do this in front of these things. And then remove the semicolon. We should be good, right? Mute. Hey, look at that. It's okay with resize so far. Okay, this is going to need to move out. Yeah. This will move out back to main. Because what main does now, it does let app equal rc new. Actually, let's say that is already let's have new just return a anyhow result rc ref cell self, right? Because we can, right? Why not? Okay, rc new ref cell new. Just encapsulate that grossness here. Still doesn't like the window. Oh, the window shouldn't go in there. We shouldn't need that anymore. Oh, why is this still a problem? Cannot be dereferenced. Oh, right, it's a box. Yeah, makes sense. Oh, but we need to pass it. Yeah, it needs to be that. Had the syntax wrong. Oh, didn't I change that from RC to box, right? Yeah, I reasoned that that could just be a box. Which means I got to change it everywhere. Hold on. Be a box here. Oh, wait. It's shared with the integration, with the abstraction itself, so it does need to be RC'd. That does need to be RC'd. Okay, there. Yeah, that was the other reason. It can't be boxed. that has to be our seed. All right. Okay, we're getting there. It'll just be this. We already have it borrowed. Getting there. So we don't call that at all. Actually, we can just get rid of the name and return it directly. Missing a closed delimiter. How did I? Oh, right there. This needs to be mutable. Ah, okay, we're almost there. So that we need to borrow. Then we let redraw. This is where we vend them, right? Well, app. Actually, I can just do it in line. Oh, right, it's the other way. So instead of app redraw, it's redraw app. Okay. There's no self here, it's just window. Shoot, what happened here? Oh, window is mutable. Oh, right. So, hold on. We need to get a new art reference for every time. So, what if in, okay. I guess I have to do it this way then. Let redraw equal. Let app equal app.clone. And then it's just app.redraw. Or app redraw app. And then the same thing with resize. Whew. Okay. Uh-oh. Mutable borrows. No, we can't do that. Shoot. That's a problem, right? Hmm. Making it harder. Same thing here. Yeah, okay. This is a mutable reference to the app for some lifetime. But now we're running to this problem. Can't I like make, I can solve this by making this a method, right? So move that back into app. Instead of this, we can just make that self, right? And then this becomes self. Fun name. Actually takes it? Oh, it does. It consumes it. Okay, we should just separate it before we go into there. So textures delta dot set. What is the type of that? This. What's the name of it? It's just set. New or change textures? Textures. Fun name. Textures delta set. By the way, guest is back right in front of the camera. Kitty. Hey there, Anna Kim Luke. Yep. Kitty there, now Kitty gone. Yeah, sorry, I'm sort of like really laser focused on this maybe ill-fated refactoring attempt. We'll see. Really doesn't like this texture. Oh, yeah, what am I doing? This doesn't need that, just like that. Okay. Let's give it a correct name. Where's update egui textures? So why don't I just collapse these together then, right? Just take these lines and put them back where we called them from here. Textures. That would be self.egui render. These, so self goes in front of all of these, right? And these are both borrowed. There. Okay, I already forgot what the function was called. Update egui textures, that's what it was called. There we go. All right, we're getting there. So the same thing here, there's going to be oh no, this is within an egui render. So refactor into function. Call this function update egui textures. Okay, and then I'm going to take it and put it into the app itself. Oh, shoot. We already have something called update egui textures. Shoot. What do we call it? It's buffers, right? Buffers with one S. Okay. Now put it back into the app. Right there. Okay, and then this just becomes mutable self. And here's where like the screen descriptor is already. Oh no, the screen descriptor isn't in self. Yeah, never mind. Okay, getting better. So this becomes self dot, or this dot. Okay, resolving all these errors one by one. Okay, this is another thing. Okay, draw models already exists, so I'm just going to shortcut it because I know exactly what I'm going to do. That actually just moves into the app right there, and we'll just paste it somewhere here, right? This becomes draw models for self. So we already have what? Model renderer? We already have model renderer. We already have the queue. I think we already have models too. Well, we sort of know what the models will be, so actually then I don't need this anymore, do I? We're just constructing this live, right? Yeah. This isn't going to end up being this.draw models, and it knows about its own models, right? So that we're just going to move directly into here. And we can just make that a tuple. Right? Did I not do that? Not an iterator. Do I have to make it a array? Okay. Model render, that's ours, right? Yes. Self dot. Queue is ours as well. Borrow the queue. Cool. All right, so then this does not need a model render or a queue. Just needs a screen. Render pass model. It doesn't need the models anymore. It doesn't need to be generic over that. And it doesn't need a models anymore. It just needs a render. Or really, that goes there. Okay, maybe we don't need those explicit lifetimes anymore. Cool. So now we're down to this part. What's the problem here? Borrowed mutably. What? Can I borrow this as immutable because it is also borrowed here? I don't get it. Oh, it's right. It's complaining about that line and that line, right? Why is it complaining about 719? It's later used in the render. Oh, right here. Because we borrowed it into there. Oh, that's going to be interesting. There, False Western. How are you doing? What are you trying to code? You mean what's the project here? We're just playing around with these libraries. I'll just run it. So, learning how to draw 3D graphics at a low level with wgpu. It's a kind of a nice wrapper for OpenGL or Vulkan or Metal or WebGL, all of those. And I'm also integrating with this GUI made in egui. And once I get to it, not today, but maybe later this week, add some physics to this simulated world. And it's really just to learn those 3 libraries. Yes, the magic cube. I ought to have it on a timer that every like half an hour I give the 30-second summary of what I'm doing, right? Either that or I put it into the bot command and I have the bot just have a timer in the bot that does that, maybe? Right now I'm kind of deep into a refactoring step here. And as typical, what happens with Rust is that you end up struggling with the borrow checker. So that's a typical error message. Cannot borrow something as immutable because it is also borrowed as mutable. I didn't borrow anything from this here. Okay, here the models borrowed the render pass, but only temporarily, right? I think maybe the problem is this. Let's remove this. No, it had a problem here. Why not live long enough? Okay, but what if I just remove this and make this implied and then remove all this? What happens? It needs, okay, it can't figure it out. I think this is backwards, right? No, this is correct, right? We have to be able to borrow the models at least as, oh, okay. So that the problem is we are putting something from self into the render pass. All right. So this is a legit error. Because draw models mutably, maybe if I don't, no, it mutably borrows the thing we're drawing, right? The reason why is why. Oh, because I was updating the transform in here somewhere. Why does this need to be mutable? Can I just make this immutable right here? Why does this have to be mutable? It didn't have to be mutable at all. Okay, so I think I might have fixed the problem just by only immutably borrowing the model. Oh, I think because before when we did draw, we updated the model itself, but now we're not. Okay, that's great. I just got out of that situation, but we still have this other problem right here, right? Where, no, I need to clean this up. The models does not need to be borrowed mutably. Do not need a mutable reference to either model. Cool. Fixed it. Am I out of errors then? Oh, wow, I'm out of errors. So now it's just warnings I want to clean up. Okay, so it just does not need to be a vector anymore, right? Right. So we can finally clean that up like we wanted to do. There was a reason I couldn't before. Now I can. Haha. This looks like a needless abstraction, right? Why can't I just do that in place of where that's called? Yeah, why can't I just call that here? Hold on. The names. I need to get the names right here. Hide this for now. Mutably encode the encoder, and then these are that. Wait. Hold on. What? Oh, the encoder needs to be mutably borrowed. Wait, then what about the device in the queue? Oh, we had to put it into right. I needed to do that because otherwise it thinks we need a reference to the whole object. This is saying we're only borrowing this for limited time to temporarily borrow these out. Yeah, so I can't collapse those. What was the warning though? Passed by value but not consumed. What can it be instead then? Consider making it a reference? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Now I have errors though. Because I accidentally typed the letter A. Another A here. Okay, that has to be and probably the same thing here, right? Yes. Okay, no warnings, no errors, but I'm not completely satisfied with that. Looks like today is going to be all refactoring, unfortunately. Sorry if you're expecting some update to the actually shown by the app, but yeah. This is still kind of clumsy to me. This seems clumsy. Is there a reason why I have a scope here? No, there's no reason. You know what would help is if I took the parts of the stuff that are within this render pass and I refactor that out into something local, right? Let's do that. So refactor function. I don't know what the name is yet, but I do want to move it into the app. Where to put it? Put it right here. Fun name. This goes away. Whoa. Could you please format that for me? Okay, there we go. So it's just borrow self immutably. Oh, do we need it to be mutable? No. Okay, view is borrowed. Screen descriptor is also borrowed. Egui rectangles is also borrowed. And then we don't have to have this drop anymore because it's implied, right? Self becomes, this becomes self. All right. And this becomes this. Move that. Borrow all these things, right? All right, and what's the fun name? Although fun name is pretty fun. What do we call it? This is like render everything, right? Draw everything. Draw? Draw. This is much easier to read. We draw by starting a render pass, drawing our models, rendering the egui. Our models are the ground and the cube. Draw them with the model renderer. The model renderer sets up a graphics pipeline, or binds the render pipeline to the render pass, sets the buffers, sets up the transform for the matrix for placing the object and rotating it and all that fun stuff, and then drawing it. Okay, I like this. It's much better now. So simple. I really don't like using this. So, can I not use self here? I really wish I could do this. I could say self. But I guess that syntax is not allowed. I do self. Yeah, we can't do that, right? So we can have a RC self, an arc self, or a pin self, immutable reference, mutable reference, or a box, but that's it. We can't have an RC ref cell self. No, I can't actually have self, like I can't do that because I actually need it to be behind a reference count and a ref cell because here, we need to clone that reference here, and then we inside of the closure we need to open up the cell. So this ref cell is for interior mutability, which is a fancy word, or fancy two-word combination that means that we're going to pretend that it's immutable, but in reality, every time that the closure is called, we're actually going to, haha, tricked you, we're going to mutate this. That's what that bar mut means. It means to open up the cell and get mutable access to the thing inside. You can only do this safely without panicking in single-threaded code, which this is. So we're fine. It's basically telling Rust bar checker, hey, chill, we're going to mutate this, but you don't need to worry about it because it's single-threaded. What about wrapping it and then have self on there when you... Then you can clone it? Wrapping it and then have self on there, then you can clone it. I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, you mean a new struct? By wrapping, you mean a new struct? Oh, I think I see what you mean. So you're saying, okay, let's put this back to being buildable again. Yeah, it's all to try to get rid of the word this, right? So you're saying that in addition to struct app, we'd have a struct. What's a cool name for this? Like I can't think of a cool name, so we're just gonna call it wrapped app. Where app is r seed ref cell. Actually, we can put RC outside, right? How about we call it jailed app? Just for fun. Like that, right? And then we would have input, well, we would just, let's just try it with redraw, right? So what will we do here? How much of this do I need to copy? I don't know. So I'm going to copy a lot more than I need. So now, because of that, we can just say reference to RC self. Right? So this is allowable. Okay. So are we just thinking calling, well, I could just start off with saying, what is it again? App, redraw, self, right? Well, hold on, I can't just say that. I have to call the other redraw at some point, right? Hey there, Nightshade dude. It's all good except for how do we, yeah, this is sort of warping my brain a little bit too much. We need to get the app out of it. This is really not app, it's wrapper. I guess, do I just want to move the entire redraw out of it? Let's redraw. Ultimately, I want a mutable self that returns a duration, right? And so I think I needed this line up there because after then I can just call redraw on it. Yes, so wrapper app borrow mute app. Okay, it's so then I should just be called app redraw. Oh, okay. So far so good. So then I don't need any of this junk. I just take the internals of this down to here, right? And I just change all the thises to selves, right? Oh, getting close. App start. What happened to app start? And info overlay. What happened to that? Where did those go? Who was in my place? Okay, it's there. Is there a reason? Oh, right. These are essentially the state of the wrapped. So these are the things that need to persist from one redraw to another. So that means I need to pass them in. So these types, instant and info overlay. Okay, I can do that. Instant and info overlay. Instant and info overlay. And they are, that's immutable. This is mutable reference. Consider dereferencing the borrow? Wait, why? Oh. Is that a value type, so it doesn't need to be a reference? And that already is a mutable borrow. Getting there. Whew. Okay. Almost there. This now we can we just make a wrapper. So wrapper jailed app. App is app clone. Right? And then we tell the we ask the wrapper wait. That already does a clone. This needs to be jailed from the start, doesn't it? Yeah. Jailed app RC new ref cell new. Oh, actually, it already new returns that already, right? So then I can just reduce this down to app.redraw. Compatible types. Oh, does new not return RC ref cell? And what's jailed app? Ref cell. Ooh, because the whole thing is reference. Okay, so I need to move the RC out of this. And that means my new here has to return a ref cell only. And then I can remove that part of it. Ah, clumsy. Getting there though. Oh, right. So we did it for redraw. So we just need to repeat the same thing for resize. So jailed app needs to have a resize. Oh, my brain is definitely getting stretched by this one. Okay, so this becomes self. We have just self instead of the ref cell because the ref cell is in app. Okay, and then similar structure. Clone the wrapper, move something in. We're going to bar mutably in order to do a resize. And I don't know if we need anything yet. Okay, so the resize down here. So this just becomes mutable self, right? And it doesn't need to return anything. It just does this part. This becomes self. Okay, we do need a width and a height. That comes from the wrapper, right? These types. I guess I already deleted it, but that's okay. We'll get it back. Width and height. Okay. So then this is just app.resize. Oh. Yes, width, height. I forget, doing that, we don't have to set the types here, right? Okay. Okay. That did it. Whew. So we have the shared app context, and then we have something that wraps a ref cell of it, and that thing, the jailed app, is able to vend out boxed closures for the event loop. It is expected to be reference counted so that we can get a copy of the reference to move into the closure. And once in the closure, we can use that through that reference, we can get to the app. So I wonder if I should have a convenience method here on wrapper. Just to hide the fact that it actually is a ref cell, right? So why not? Because we can, right? So borrow app self to be this type, whatever it is, ref mut. of an implied lifetime of app, just self.app.borrowMut. Import that from cell. And then these just become wrapper.borrow app. Okay. I like it. So everything that comes before the move are like redraw has something but resize doesn't. That's essentially state like that we're capturing in this closure. This ends up being like information about the app that's outside of the app but is reusable within the closure. I kind of like that. All right. I think we're getting near the end of the stream. I need to clean up some stuff, but it's not too bad. I don't even need to have names for these, right? I can just put them directly in here. RC new jailed app where the app is a new app, which construction is fallible. Does it make sense to have the ref cell out? I think it does. The ref cell is not something the app really cares about anymore, right? The concern about that it being in a ref cell or not is now no longer the app's responsibility. It's now the jailed app's responsibility. So that should be RC ref cell new. And if anything, I should just refactor that to be jailed app new. So that's what I'm going to do. Add a new for jailed app, which I probably will rename, even though it's a funny name. Why did I have that commented out? Oh, that was my attempt to make something more generic, unrelated to today's work. Definitely losing my context. I probably should like move a bunch of stuff out of this out to another function, right? Can you do RC self? No. Or can you? Can. Okay, I just need those things. Actually, I can just steal from here. Or is it better to have app constructed outside? Yeah, I think so. So this is just app, which is app, and we end up doing putting that here. So this new ends up encapsulating the fact that we're putting the app in a ref cell, and this is a strong implication that says you're going to want to use this through a reference count, which makes sense because that matches with the redraw and resize. They're through a reference. Okay, so I like that. And back to our main. So it's just jailed app new. And then delete everything but app new. Cool. So this app type, if it's always inside of this, why don't we call app inner? And then we call jailed app outer, or just app. And then we call app inner. Aha, much better. And then this whole thing should go into a file called app, right? Inner main just makes a new app. Okay, then maybe maybe instead of referencing inner, these things should be on the outer as well. So then that would go here. What did I not like about that? Oh, it's fallible. Pass along the fallibility of it. So that's anyhow result that type. And if we make it that far, it's okay. All right, and then out here, I just do app new and just shorten that. Okay, how readable is this? Set up blocking, parse arguments, make an egui context, choose a window type, make a new app, and then run the event loop. And the event loop is given vended redraw resize closures. So making a new app given a egui context and window is really just we're wrapping we have interior mutability, which this is a common pattern, right? Is that you'll have the entire app state inside of a ref cell, and the inner type is just called inner. And the whole point is that when I put this into its own file, inner is never seen outside, is private. Public, the app would be public, the inner would be private, right? It's new. Oh, do I need? I don't even need this RC to be in this result anymore. I could put that all into the inner or the outer, right? Yeah, one more step then. So on. Oh no, I'm reading that wrong. Yeah, it's all encapsulated here. The fact that no, take that back. It's not encapsulated. So we're explicit that you're going to hold on to an app through a reference count, and that's needed because that's just the convention in which we're going to vend out closures that share access to the app through a reference counted pointer. But internally, we're using a ref cell, and then that's hidden away inside of this. It's encapsulated into here. The inner doesn't need to have any concept of the fact that it's shared with reference counts or anything. It's just it's dealt with by the outer. So the inner class should be pretty devoid of RCs and ref cells for the whole app. There's still an internal RC for the egui context because that's shared with the window. There's no avoiding that. Just the way it is. We have to have a box here because this is dynamic. We don't know what kind of abstract class we have. Okay, yeah, I'm completely out of time. I gotta get ready for a work meeting. So let me just add that and say crazy refactoring. Oops, I ran the wrong command. I guess it doesn't hurt to run it one more time. Never seen a self used like that though. This is crazy refactoring. Okay, and I'm going to do a send. To send it out of the virtual machine so that I can make sure it's backed up. And then I'll just run this one more time while I find someone to raid. Really appreciate that you guys all stuck with me. Even though I didn't change anything visually on the app, I did a bunch of refactoring that cleaned up separation of concerns and all that. Need to do a little bit more to, like, I want to put them in different files. The main file is too big. That's pretty much all I needed to do. Okay, is there more Rust drama? It looks like there might be. Let's go raid the Primogen to learn more about this Rust drama. All right. You've seen in other frameworks? Kind of like a main and a render process that you've seen? Okay. See ya, 715209, and everybody else. I hope you enjoy Primogen stream, and I should be back tomorrow, okay? Take it easy. Bye.